One of the biggest questions that gets asked is, why does God allow suffering? Why do bad things happen to good people? Why do babies die of cancer? Why does sexual abuse exist? Why do innocent people face such unimaginable pain? Where's God in all of this? And why doesn't he do anything about it? Now, I'm not here to pretend that I have all the answers. In fact, I'm about to say something that will probably shock you. But honestly, I don't know. I wish I could give you some biblically sound, theologically correct, perfect answer to answer this question and tie it up in a nice, neat little bow for you. But honestly, my honest answer is I don't know. And sometimes, I think that's one of the most faithful things that we can say. I think sometimes when we're struggling or suffering, the last thing we want is someone to give us just some formulaic answer. What we really need is honesty and maybe more than that, we need compassion. So let's talk about it. Suffering is real. It's messy, it's uncomfortable, it's really painful. But it's also where our faith gets tested. And I think as Christians, we need to get a lot more comfortable with the tension of not having all the answers. So that's what I want to have a look at today, because yeah, there is pain in the world, there is suffering in this world, but there's also something much more beautiful, something deeper that God offers us in the middle of our suffering. And we just have to be willing to engage with it. Because in the middle of our suffering, God offers us hope. I think when we think about suffering, we can't ignore the emotions and the pain that it brings, because it's not just about theological arguments, it's personal. Have you ever been in a moment where you thought, God, if you really loved me or if you really loved them, why would you allow this? Where are you right now? Why do you allow good people to suffer while others seem to have everything handed to them on a silver platter? Look, I've asked this too. I know what it's like. Some days it can feel like everything's falling apart and all you can do is cry out to God. And it feels like he's silent. Some of us have gone through personal tragedies that just don't make sense. Maybe you've experienced a loss, a betrayal, an illness, or maybe you've watched someone else suffer in a way that just breaks your heart. And in those moments, that question just hangs there. Why, God? Why do you let this happen? Why doesn't the good God that we talk about all the time step in and fix this? Why is there so much pain? And where is he in it all? And that's the tough part. We don't get to snap our fingers and make all the pain go away. We don't get the kind of answer that we want in the moment, a quick fix. But that's part of the wrestling match that we're all in, isn't it? I mean, let's be real. Some answers to suffering feel so far off, and I think one of the hardest parts of the Christian walk is being willing to trust God even when he doesn't answer our why questions in a way that satisfies us. But let's try and unpack this just a little bit, because I've been thinking about why God might allow suffering, and honestly, it doesn't all fit into a neat little box. But I do think there are a few perspectives we need to keep in mind when we look at this question, and I think the foundation of it all is free will. Think about this. God created us with free will. He didn't just make us robots, just going through the motions day by day, beep boop, beep boop. He gave us the ability to choose love, to choose faith, to choose him. And with that freedom, and for it to mean anything, there comes the other side of the pendulum, which is the freedom to possibly choosing wrong. And if we're going to have true love and relationship with God, it has to be freely chosen. Otherwise, we're just puppets in a play. So when Adam and Eve chose to eat from the tree of knowledge and good and evil in the Garden of Eden, that wasn't just about one bad decision. That choice opened the door for all brokenness in the world. Eve eating the apple was humanity giving the finger to God and saying, God, we don't need you. We know better. So in response to that, God said, okay, fine. And he took a step back. And because of our choice to walk away from God, death, pain, sickness, natural disasters, all that entered the world because of human rebellion. Genesis tells us that God's creation was good, but the fall of man and our choosing to walk away from God's good design infected the entire world. And that's the harsh reality of living in such a fallen world, is that we can't escape that. But this is the really important part to hear. Even though we messed it up, even though we say, God, we know better, we don't want you, God didn't abandon us. He didn't just wipe his hands clean and walk away and say, oh, there we are then. No, he sent his son, Jesus, into the brokenness. Jesus entered the suffering of the world to rescue us from the suffering of the world. And that's the part we don't talk about enough, because God could have chosen to stay away above it all, above all the mess, but he didn't. Instead, he humbled himself. He chose to come down into the mess to suffer with us. I once watched a Christian and an atheist debate each other, and the problem of evil come up, and the atheist said to the Christian, "What's the Christian going to say to the mother whose child is dying of cancer?" And the Christian responded by flipping that question on his head. He said, "Let me ask you this. What does the atheist have to offer? Nothing but emptiness. Nothing but the idea that a child's suffering was meaningless, that his life was an accident, and that his death is the end, and that's it." And then he turned back and he said, "I may not have all the answers as to why God allows this, but I can say this. I can say that your child's life mattered. It had eternal significance. And because of Christ, your child's death is not the end. One day, through Jesus, you can hold your little boy again." And don't that just hit different? Christianity doesn't eliminate the pain by any means, but it gives it purpose, and it gives us a future hope that suffering and death might exist, but it will not have the final word. Let's just sit with that for a second. Jesus entered our world of suffering, and he didn't just come to observe. It wasn't like he showed up, saw the mess, and he was like, "Wow, that's rough. All the best." No, he came to live in the pain, to experience the suffering, to walk through the very same kinds of things that we go through on a daily basis. He was betrayed by his closest friends. He was misunderstood by his family. He was arrested, beaten, mocked, and crucified. Do you think his suffering was any different? Do you think he was nailed to the cross and he just shrugged it off and said, "Oh, it doesn't matter"? No. He cried out to God, my God, why have you forsaken me?" He felt the weight of the world's pain, and his pain shows us that God is with us in our suffering. He isn't distant. He isn't some deity just sat on the throne saying, "Well, that's your problem." He enters the suffering and he walks through it with us. And he is our only hope. Christianity doesn't eliminate suffering, but it does promise that suffering has an expiration date. It won't last forever. The main thing I want you to take away from this video is, when suffering hits, because it will, don't run away from God. You may not have all the answers, but you have him, and in your suffering, he is all you need. So please just keep holding on to him, even when you don't have the answers, and remember that he's the God who enters our suffering, and he promises that suffering will not have the last word. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button. Click the video on the screen to watch my last video. I think you will enjoy that one as well. I hope you have a great rest of your week. I love you. Jesus loves you. God bless.